February 1, 2026. Tucson, Arizona. 2:28 in the morning. A pacemaker goes silent. Not because of a medical emergency. Not because of old age. Because someone who knew exactly what they were doing made sure it would. And here's what's terrifying, the local police had no idea what they were looking at. But she did. 28 years inside the FBI. Not behind a desk, in the field, building cases, hunting predators, reading crime scenes that look like accidents but weren't. Jennifer Coffindaffer has seen every type of criminal mind this country produces. And when she looked at the Tucson case, the one the media called a random break-in, she didn't see chaos. She saw a blueprint. She saw patience. Calculation. And something far more disturbing than a robbery gone wrong. She saw a man who had been planning this for months, possibly years, waiting for the exact right moment. This was not random. This was not opportunistic. This was a hunt. And Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, dependent on a walker, the mother of one of America's most recognized journalists, was the target. Today, we are going through this case piece by piece. Every clue. Every failure. Every move this suspect made, and the one fatal mistake that will eventually bring him down. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you will not see this case the same way again. Let's start with what most people missed on day one. The doorbell camera footage. When the suspect approaches the front of the house, he does something almost no one noticed. He keeps his head down, deliberately, consistently, at the exact angle needed to avoid the camera's field of view. Now think about that for a second. A random burglar, casing a neighborhood for the first time, does not know where the cameras are. He might get lucky. He might not. But he doesn't walk with the kind of precision this man showed. This suspect knew the camera was there. He knew its angle. He knew exactly how low to tilt his head to stay out of frame. That is not luck. That is reconnaissance. Now let's go to the back of the house. The rear doors, the entry point, were open. Not broken. Not forced. Open. In a standard break-in, you expect broken glass, a kicked-in frame, a lock that's been tampered with. There was none of that. The doors were simply available. Which means one of two things: either someone inside left them open, or someone who had been inside before knew exactly which doors were never fully secured. Either way, this is not the behavior of a stranger. And then there's Nancy herself. 84 years old. Uses a walker. Her mobility is limited significantly. The kind of limitation that is not obvious from a distance, not something you'd know from a Google search, not something a stranger would factor into a plan. But this suspect factored it in perfectly. He chose a target whose physical condition made resistance nearly impossible. That level of specificity, that cruelty, tells Jennifer Coffindaffer everything she needs to know. This man knew Nancy Guthrie. Not casually. Closely. Here is where this case gets mathematically disturbing. Pay attention to these numbers, because they tell a story that the suspect did not intend to leave behind. 9:50 p.m., the suspect is dropped off near the location. 1:47 a.m., that is the last confirmed timestamp before things go dark. That's a 4-hour gap. 4 hours is not nothing. 4 hours is enough time to change clothes, gather supplies, wait for the neighborhood to go completely quiet, and position yourself for entry. This was not someone acting on impulse. This was someone executing a schedule. But here's where it gets truly chilling. 2:12 a.m., motion is detected inside the house. 2:28 a.m., Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker signal goes offline. 16 minutes. That's all it took. 16 minutes to locate an 84-year-old woman in a dark house, subdue her, and remove her completely. Without triggering a single alarm, without waking a neighbor, without leaving an obvious trace. 16 minutes. You do not move through an unfamiliar house in 16 minutes in the dark without a floor plan in your head. You do not find a specific room, a specific person, and execute a plan that cleanly in a home you've never entered before. Investigators know this. Jennifer Coffindaffer knows this. The 16-minute window is not proof of efficiency. It's proof of rehearsal. And here's the theory that law enforcement is now taking seriously: the masked figure you see on the footage? He is not the architect of this plan. He is the pawn. Someone else designed this. Someone who knew the house, knew the routine, knew exactly which doors to leave unlocked and exactly how much time they had. Someone who is not on camera, not in any footage, because they made sure of it. The real suspect may have never set foot inside that house on the night of February 1st. Now let's talk about the digital trail, because this is where the suspect's confidence became his first real mistake. In March 2025, nearly a year before the kidnapping, someone ran Google searches on the home's address. Exterior angles. Street-level views. Entry points. And then again in November 2025, just weeks before February 1st, the same type of searches. Same address. Same focus on the exterior layout. Now, people search addresses all the time. That's not unusual. What is unusual is the pattern. The repetition. The specific focus on angles and entry points rather than, say, the neighborhood or nearby amenities. This was not someone trying to find the house for the first time. This was someone confirming details they already knew. Refreshing their memory. Making sure nothing had changed since their last visit. The FBI is now working backwards through every digital thread this person left. Google account data. IP address logs. Device identifiers. Cell tower pings from the nights those searches were made. Every time you search something on Google, you leave a fingerprint. Every time your phone connects to a cell tower, there is a log. Every time you use a device to access the internet, there is a record. This suspect believed he was invisible online. He was wrong. And the FBI's cyber division is currently pulling on every one of those threads, waiting for the moment they all lead back to the same person. Let's talk about the ransom. Because this is the part of the case that reveals the suspect's true motive, and it is not money. After Nancy Guthrie disappeared, ransom demands were sent out. $6 million. In Bitcoin. But here's what makes no sense: if this was a genuine kidnapping for ransom, the demands were not sent to the family. They were sent to TMZ. To news networks. To media outlets. Think about that. A real kidnapper, someone who actually wants money, contacts the family privately. They establish communication. They provide proof of life. They negotiate quietly, because the last thing they want is law enforcement involvement. This suspect did the opposite of every single one of those things. No private family contact. No proof of life. No negotiation. Just public broadcast. The $6 million Bitcoin demand was not a ransom. It was a performance. The real goal was never money. The real goal was to force Savannah Guthrie, one of the most visible journalists in America, into a public, humiliating, terrifying position. To make her family's pain into a media spectacle. To watch from the shadows while the story exploded across every screen in the country. This is not the psychology of a criminal who wants to escape. This is the psychology of someone who wants to be watched. And that distinction changes everything about who law enforcement is looking for. Here's where this case should have moved faster and didn't. In the critical first hours after Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, the local response was, to put it plainly, inadequate. News crews were allowed to approach the property. Camera teams stood on the doorstep of an active crime scene. And on that doorstep, in a location that should have been immediately sealed, there was blood. Blood that was now potentially compromised. Contaminated. Touched by the wrong hands, exposed to the wrong elements, at the most important moment of the entire investigation. Local Sheriff Chris Nanos's department had the first opportunity to preserve what could have been the most critical physical evidence in the case. That opportunity was lost. And then there is the DNA. A glove recovered from the scene contained DNA. This was significant, potentially case-breaking. The kind of physical evidence that, processed correctly, could have produced a suspect profile within weeks. Instead, that glove sat in a private lab in Florida for 11 weeks. 11 weeks. While Nancy Guthrie remained missing. While her pacemaker had already gone silent. While every day without answers was another day this suspect had to cover his tracks. The DNA should have gone to Quantico, the FBI's forensic laboratory, immediately. It did not. But then the FBI took over. And when the FBI takes over a case like this, the entire machinery changes. They are now running probabilistic genotyping, a process that can extract usable DNA profiles from complex, mixed, or degraded samples that standard testing cannot read. They are mapping cell tower data from the night of the kidnapping, building a picture of every device that was active in that area at that time. And they have a blockchain specialist tracing the Bitcoin wallet that received the ransom demand because, contrary to popular belief, crypto is not untraceable. It leaves a ledger. And that ledger is being read right now. Here is what Jennifer Coffindaffer believes and what the evidence supports. Law enforcement already has a strong sense of who this person is. They are not lost. They are not spinning in circles. They know the profile. They likely know a name. But they are waiting. Because this suspect has resources. He has lawyers. He has the financial ability to fight a prosecution that isn't airtight. And law enforcement knows that a premature arrest, one that gets thrown out on a technicality, one that gives a sharp defense attorney room to maneuver, could let this man walk free. So they are building. Brick by brick. Thread by thread. But here's the thing about a man who believes he is the smartest person in every room he has ever entered. He can't stop. The God complex doesn't allow for stillness. It demands activity. It demands that he continue to watch, to insert himself, to feel the power of what he set in motion. And every single time he acts on that compulsion, every search, every transaction, every communication, he leaves another thread. One thread is all it takes. The DNA. The IP address. The Bitcoin trail. The cell tower ping from a phone he forgot to leave at home. One thread. And Jennifer Coffindaffer and the FBI are pulling on all of them simultaneously. This man believes he won. He believes he outsmarted everyone. He has not. 100 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie has been missing. 100 days since a pacemaker went silent at 2:28 in the morning. 100 days since an 84-year-old woman, someone's mother, someone's grandmother, was taken from her home in the middle of the night. She uses a walker. She has health conditions that require consistent medical attention. Every day without that care is a day that matters enormously. This case is not cold. The FBI does not let cases go cold when there is this much forensic, digital, and financial evidence still being processed. But time is not neutral. Time does not wait. The DNA will be read. The Bitcoin trail will be followed to its end. The cell tower data will place someone, somewhere, on the night it all began. And when that happens, there will be nowhere left to hide. Nancy Guthrie deserves to be found. And the person who took her, the architect sitting in the shadows, convinced of his own brilliance, is going to find out that the FBI's patience is not weakness. It is a trap. And he walked straight into it.